Welcome to Breaking Barriers with R&D, your direct line to Randy Dowdy and David Hula, here to help fellow farmers unlock the potential in their fields. Are you looking to implement best practices that maximize ROI? You've come to the right place. Real value, real yield, real ROI. Breaking Barriers with R&D starts now. Breaking Barriers is brought to you by the next generation of weed control, Liberty Ultra Herbicide from BASF. Learn more about the best Liberty yet at liberty-ultra.us.
Well, welcome to another episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D, and this is the episode of 2026. So it's kind of hard for me to get to saying 26, and I hadn't had to write a check yet, Dowdy. But this episode is sponsored by BASF, so we want to thank them. And I know that BASF was on a lot of people's mind during the end of last year's harvest season, Dowdy, where they should have or shouldn't have put fungicides. But hey, it's my pleasure to be with you to bring in the 2026 podcast series there, Dowdy.
Likewise, David. I hope you had a good holiday. I know we've spoke 2 or 3 times personally, but I know we had it was good to have Easton for Christmas this year, for the holiday for Christmas. We went to Michigan and got to do a little snow. I won't say snow sledding. It was not snowboarding, but it was snow sledding. He enjoyed that. Got to play with some friends of his up there, and his daddy went hunting a little bit, and he always enjoys going hunting. So we had a good time, David. Always good to see family and friends. We came home and celebrated, Christmas with the family, and we got a lot to be thankful for. We're blessed, no doubt about it.
Amen there. Yeah, the sickness was going around. Tassel, she was sick the weekend before Christmas, but she got all well. Kind of kept us away from some of the older generation. I guess I'm getting close to that older generation side, but had a good time with Miss Sandy and Marley, and his girlfriend saw her, and then yeah, got to be careful what I'm saying nowadays. And then we, we Acres and Tassel, and then Robbie was there. But there was one thing I asked to see. I think if I recall, one of the last times I talked to you, y'all were pushing some snow against the building so you could have a sled come down. And I said I wanted to see a video of you going down that. Did you go down that?
I did not get a video of that, but I did get a video of Easton. I'll have to send you one of that. I know what you want that other one for, so you can have comic relief at my expense. But I didn't break anything, for sure. And let's just say, when you get all this in the sled, it has a tendency, gravity takes over a little bit faster with me than it did Easton. I weigh a little bit more than he does, but the conditions were right. I mean, that hill, I'd venture to say it's 150 feet high and it's long. And I bet you go 800 feet from the top of the hill to the bottom. So it is fun. Now, he wants me to put a zip line. And I said, buddy, I said, if I put a zip line down there, that means you're gonna have to kind of stop yourself with your feet before you get to the building. Oh, we can do it, Daddy. That's no problem. I said, well, what happens if you don't stop? You're gonna crash in that building. I said, that sudden stop's gonna be pretty rough. But nonetheless, he's had a blast, and we had a good time. It's always good to spend time with him, create memories for sure.
Well, that zip line, it'd be like Bugs Bunny or something like. Yeah.
Well, my daddy, now I don't remember this because I was so little. My brother was 10 years older than me, and he says that my dad made zip lines for them when they used to live in a town called Jessup. And him and my 2 sisters would get on that zip line, and I mean, it was nonstop, and it was in the top of, I think, a big oak tree, and it come down, and they just had so much fun. My daddy, he built them a tree house. I mean, it wasn't just a tree house; it was a condo. So he did a lot of different things to invest in his children, spending time. I was a little fella, so I don't remember it, but I was generally at my brother's shirt tail though, and he was kicking me off of him. So I'm sure I went down, and I just don't remember any of those things.
Well, I'm sure Kevin treated you with kid gloves and all that. So there's
Really, yeah, the brother that always told me no matter how big I'd get, he'd always be able to whip me. Um, no matter he'd put me between the mattresses and lay on the mattresses, David. He was always the one that wanted me to understand that he was the first. So uh, I think he got smelling salts as I grew up and would beat him in basketball from time to time. And the first time I beat him in arm wrestling, he knew that I had arrived.
oh, I know he was doing all that in a Christian like manner though. So
In the most Christian like way he knew how. With love and adoration, David. Um,
well,
for
yeah.
sure.
But Dowdy, talk a little bit about farming. You know, 26 guys that are getting ready to do some corn, thinking about corn production, thinking about soybean. And, I'm in the same boat. Here I am, farm. And if you look behind me, you can see some green paint in the back windshield of the pickup. I'm trying to spread some lime today. And, we've been dry. I don't know. I think a lot of the country is dry in a dry um, so it's given us a chance to where we did some soil samples with seal. They came out, did 1 acre grids, and we put all that in prescription, and we'll be and some lime out. But as growers are thinking about what they need to be focused on in 26, you know, I don't want to waver from the basics, Dowdy, because I think about things that not that we've had success in the high yield stuff, but just things that have given us success, the foundation. And somebody sent me a picture of an old textbook, and it kind of was like a pyramid. And the bottom of that pyramid was, is line, get your pH right. And when you think about spending dollars, that you can't waver from that. And, you low price in years, you got to have bushels and you can't save yourself to prosperity, like I've heard you say. So, I know you got stuff you want to do in Georgia and then maybe working on your food in Michigan, but where's your head wrapping around right now?
Uh, well, the planner is always important for me. Yes, you gotta, we've got cover crops planted. Soil samples have been pulled. We understand where we are on fertility. Just not going to put out the chicken litter this year. Um, Logistically and based off price, I mean, they understand a lot more what they have. You don't get the bargain on it that you used to get. Um, so we're not going down that path. We're going to stick with commercial fertilizer. The good news is we got really high p values, so it's not going to require any MAP or DAP dry fertilizer applications. We'll tackle most of that with at least with 1137O, most likely in the tuba two. Um, potash. David, I've got high numbers and I've got good base saturations, but I also know where yield comes from. And we start with the basics on lime pH. Most of my lime or most of my pH, is in the 6.5 to 7.1 range. So I'm a touch high in areas, but I'm not going to put out lime with the 6.5 to 6.6s. I'm gonna let it ride this year. But the 6.8 to 7.1s, I'm gonna be very cognizant that manganese is probably going to raise its ugly head, and I'm gonna probably have to figure out some foliar applications just simply because manganese uptake with a pH above 6.8 is very tough. So strategy from that perspective, you know, I don't call for any potash, but I just know how corn is as you've phrased it many times, a luxury consumer of that. We get a lot of high nighttime temperatures here, a lot of heat. Potash naturally will help the plant cool itself. Um, David, our highest yields come from where our highest base saturations are every year. So potash is still a big focus for me on a fertilizer standpoint. But the planter, that is, you know, You've heard me preach it. You've heard me talk about it. All the total acre growers have heard me talk about it to ad nauseum. They're over it, but a lot of them still don't have it checked. They don't have those boxes checked. And for me, you can do a lot on the fertility side, but the first box that I know that's got to be checked, you know, I'll do some potash this time of year and going into the next season, but I'm not going to get stupid on a lot of other applications until I know that box is checked with emergence, where every plant has emerged, within that 10 to 12 GDUs of one another. That's got to happen. And if it's not happening, then why not? And I feel like, you know, it's a big deal. A lot of people have made a lot of money on planter upgrades and spent a lot of money on planter upgrades. Um, but I truly believe that is the lowest hanging fruit on 90% of most people's farms is that the planter is just not performing at the levels to reach the maximum potential that most of them need to support and service debt. I still think the planter's the problem. I still think emergence the problem. I don't mean a new planter. I mean whatever you're choosing to plant with. Does every seed have the same standard deviation between placement from one seed to the next? Are they all singulated, and are they all coming up at the same time? And if that's not happening, David, that's a big deal. So I know this is the time of the year that you're getting parts ordered and about to get ready to start going through that planner. I'm sure it's in your shop. If it's not, it's probably about to be. And with your schedule that's coming up, I know you're about to be busy. So I don't know how much you've worked on it at this point, but I know it's got to be on your mind as well.
Well, the bean planter's in the warehouse right now. Got to work on it. We got it tore apart. Uh, really don't have a whole lot with it because we put on some new parallel arms last winter on the bean planter. Got the double disc openers there. Just looking to check see if we got changed any seed tubes because it's just a regular 1795 with that ME5 meters in a seed tube. So we'll do the double disc openers, put those on scrapers. We need new scrapers. Then just make sure everything's tight from a gauge wheel standpoint. And, you know, I, I've been around you enough. And when you walk to a planter and you start picking up gauge wheels and they slam down, drop down fast, they weren't correctly set. Um, Having a few issues on a couple of the bushings on the gauge wheel arms, so looking at having to put some new gauge wheel arms on. And, those things we'll pay attention to. Dry dirt falling in the trench on double crop beans usually isn't a big deal because it's all dry anyhow. Because we're usually waiting, trying to get it in. We just have a regular cast iron closing wheel, so we know the sins of those, making sure they're staying in the center. Because I don't remember what camp we were at. I know you do, but I remember watching you go look at a planter, and it happened to be a red planter
Illinois.
in Illinois, and that we were doing the planter variability challenge there, and it was over 100 bushel difference from the best row to the worst row, and we walked around. You walked on one side, I walked on the other, and you found the problem right away. You said, "Hey, was it this particular row?" And you probably know what row it is. And Randy Seaver pulled it up on us, and not taking your thunder away, but it was mostly the reason for the close was off centered.
And they had struggled with it all spring. They knew there was an issue. They just didn't. They couldn't fix it. They were at the point of it just kept moving. They knew there was an issue and they couldn't correct it for whatever reason. And unfortunately, it cost them a bunch of yield. And we validated that through the plantar variability test. So you asked me, David. You know, obviously your bean planters in there first, but you're not going to plant beans most likely. You'll plant a little bit of full season beans, but most of your first planting is going to be corn. And do you have anything new on your planter that's going out this year that you're vetting or testing?
Well, the planter hadn't made it into the warehouse yet. I wanted to do the bean one first just because that was the first one cleaned up. So when we bring the corn planter in, we will strip it down. I mean, it'll be bare. We'll take all the fertilizer attachments off. I'll go through all that. Then the units themselves. We did the performance upgrade kit 4 years ago. So it's time to replace the parallel arms. So we're going to put some new parallel arms. So I'm kind of anxious to hear. I'm going to Commodity Classic. That's going to be, I want to see what they have there. And, talking with growers through the Total Acre events, we still got, I'll be in Michigan or Indiana next Monday, and then I'll be down south on the following Monday. So I'll visit some growers, but new parallel arms. I was fortunate enough several weeks ago, I spent some time at the John Deere planter factory in Moline. And I toured that facility, years ago when we were doing the TV show, Total Acres Farming Show there with RFD, and had a chance to go through it. Well, they were anxious and had a chance to go back several weeks ago, and they relined the units, the assembly line for the row units, and they've mechanized it a lot more. They're closer to what we would consider to be acceptable. You still need the dealer to kind of tinker with them to get the gauge wheels right and the touch points on the double disc openers. So we see that, and I'm anxious to see how that comes about for this next growing season. Now, I didn't order a new planter, Dowdy, and they're not sending me a free one. I don't want you to say any of that yet. I'll beat you to it. But they, that from the start to the finish, the end product is better now than it was 5 years ago. We still need, as a grower, take ownership and go through it, make sure things are right. They've heard us talk about the double disc openers. And, for me, I used to I go to the dealer. I haven't done it yet this year, but I'll go to the dealer, take my instruments, my jig, and we'll do runouts on blades to check to make sure there's no one out in the center. And everybody's expectations or tolerances are different. But for those blades to get on my corn planter, there has to be 20 thousandths of an inch less between the two blades. So I'll take a 5 thousandths of an inch and then a 15 thousandths of an inch wobble and put them together, or 2/10s together. I've never found a perfect one, but that's the type of effort I'll put into it. And I'll go through 2 crates to find 32 blades. John Deere's heard it, and a couple of years ago we did some testing. When the blades were sent to us, I tested them, and the runout, the worst one was 35 thousandths of an inch. So that was clearly better than what OEM stuff we were getting before. And they didn't have any last year, but they got some this year. And I like to think that maybe I'll get some of the new ones to try.
They're gonna send you the best ones they got, David. They're gonna send you the best ones they got, and then everybody else is gonna get the rest.
I don't know. I asked, I think when I got the ones the first year, I said, did these just come off the line or did y'all go through them? And he said, no, they just came off the line. So they are better. The next run out's going to be like if I'm able to get a set. And, we'll do like we did a couple years ago. We'll put the new ones on half the planter and then regular OEMs on the other half to compare. And what we did see, on the first set, they did last longer. There was some inside scraping, and that needed to be shimming. We really needed a new inside scraper, and I think all that'll get worked out if we go that route again. But then outside of that, anything new? Really not planning on much new stuff this year, Dowdy. Maybe some new blades we can try it, and then parallel arms just to when you talk about uniform emergence and you get a parallel arms at war and it's going to start moving side to side and it's not going to, the down pressure, you're not going to get consistent uniform downforce, um, we'll, we can have problems there. So we want to keep it good and tight. So that's the only changes I see. Now, you had a different planter last year, I think you played with up north. So did you see anything on that that you really like?
Well, the exact emerge was fantastic. Um, when we could get seed to the meters, we had an agitator that had a problem in one of the central fields, and it'd make Billy Graham cuss. We'd have seed in the tubes. How it got in the tube if the agitator was a problem, I don't know. But we'd have seed in the tube. We'd have to wiggle the tubes and get the seed to flow to the meter. And we got out. I got my PT in 8,000 times on and off that stupid tractor. But we finally figured out it was the agitator. They put a new one on and got us going. But it was not without its fair share of challenges for sure. The same planter's coming back. Supposedly they have had a new set of eyes go through it, and replaced a lot of what was brand new already and was not done correctly. From I had a conversation with Deere yesterday at length about this planter. It's coming. Lord willing, it's going to be here. They don't know if they're going to take it to another farm show or not at this point, but it may end up being, at a farm show and then come here for planting. Obviously, the sooner I get it, the better for me because I want to look over it myself. And there's some new technology on it that I don't have familiarity with. I had its counterparts version, but there is new technology on the planner that I'm going to be playing with. But the best thing that I saw last year was the exact emerge and the performance of the exact emerge. That part of it worked great. Um, we've got 2x2 on the planner. It's two bar. It's frame mounted. It's not on the row unit itself. It's on the frame. It's the typical John Deere, kind of like you've ran forever. It's on one side. Um, we are doing, you know, two methods of control of liquid. We're doing in furrow, and we got a tank on it's a 23 row, 15-inch or 30-inch planter, 12 row 30. So we've got a tank on the planter itself, that will be for in furrow. Um, and then we got saddle tanks on the tractor that will be for exact rate running 2x2. I think we got a surefire on one and maybe exact rate on the other, just so we can make sure that each row unit is putting out the same amount of liquid per row. So we'll be vetting that. We've had, obviously we've vetted, you know, competition precisions versions of those. Um, I'm a believer in if you're going to put out fertilizer, whether you're doing it with a side dress rig or if you're doing it with you know, a ground rig of any sort, whether it's a Hagee or John Deere or whoever, or if you're doing a side dress rig of any sort, every row needs to get the same amount of fertilizer. So that should be applicable to a planter as well. And so we're gonna have 2x2. We're gonna have in furrow. We're still going with the standard um, V press wheels. It's going to make me pull my white hair out, I'm sure, before it's all over said and done, just simply because you can't make them stay centered the way they're designed today. And I'm going to be on that, addressing it constantly. And I know that's going to be frustrating, but we're not going to plant the planet. I mean, we're going to have enough acres that it's tolerable. Um, we are going to play with some John Deere versions of what they call a cotton. It's a two-stage. You've got a set of disc and a wheel. It's kind of like a case or the fast tracks that are out there that are aftermarket. We will play with some two-stage closing systems on there as well, comparing them to V-press wheels. Um, so, David, I mean, to answer your question, the Zacta merge worked well, but the furrow vision, we had enough software and installation issues that I just didn't get a good warm and fuzzy to be able to opine today about its true value. I'm looking. I like the concept. I like the concept of how they're going to use that technology in the future to drive um, further advancements of control on the planter. I'm looking for that for sure. I truly believe that the furrow vision has its place. They just got to get all the bugs worked out of it, and I'm part of that, I guess, process of getting the bugs worked out. Um, but I'm looking forward to getting it in the field. That's the main thing, and maybe we can make some trial runs before we actually try to plant. If we can make some trial runs before we try to plant, obviously that takes some pressure off when it is go time. The Commodity Classic obviously is the end of February this year. I'm looking at the calendar. I spoke with the John Deere boys yesterday. I said, "All right, fellas, I'm not in the Midwest. I'm not the guy that's going to plant in April or May on purpose." And I said, "In the South, David will tell you he hoped Randy plants early and then shares what challenges he sees and issues so he can make sure it ain't a problem in Virginia. We plant up typically in February or March, and David, if we can get it planted in February this year, um, it's going to be tough because of schedules, but we want to be ready for sure. But if we can get it planted in February or the 1st of March this year, I think Easter's April the 5th. So I don't historically collect enough GDUs to worry about that frost that hits at April, but or at least by Easter. That full moon around Easter, we typically get a little cold spell. And if Easter's April 25th, man, I'm scared to death to plant too early. But with Easter being the first week of April this year, if conditions are right, I mean, today we're abnormally dry, just like you referenced. And um, unless something changes, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to jinx myself. I'd rather it be a little dry. That way we can get out there and get going on time. But that can turn around fast with the fronts parking over us. But that's kind of where I'm at, David, is I'm looking to vet some of this technology, get more familiar with it. I've ran speed tubes. I haven't ran ExactEmerge a whole lot, so I'm looking forward to that. I have seen some outstanding performance from some of our growers with the ExactEmerge. And then obviously the fertilizer piece of being able to control rates by row is always a big deal. So we're checking those boxes as well. So I'm looking forward to it. We just got to get the planter here and get it going.
In fields where weeds don't back down, farmers count on Liberty Ultra Herbicide by BASF. The Liberty Lock formulation delivers stronger coverage, improved uptake, and 20% better weed control. Results Colin Ryan in north central Iowa knows well.
The Liberty Lock formulation seems to really get down, penetrate into the weed, and the performance has been great.
That's Liberty Ultra Herbicide. Consistent, proven performance. Hear more Ultramonials at libertyultramonials.com. Always read and follow label directions.
Just while I was in Moline, and they were showing me a lot of the new technology that you have on your planter. They didn't unveil any curtains so I could see anything in 27, 28, or 29, but they were showing me what was available, with the regular OEM stuff. And the Furrow Vision looks exciting. When I first heard about that Furrow Vision, I'm like, fellas, don't have a solution when you identify a problem. And I think they feel like they got some solutions there with some downforce, and I think they feel like they're on track. Now, so most growers aren't going to buy a planter. I mean, there's this new money that's getting ready to come out through FSA, and I think John Deere and Case and Fendt, all the others realize they're probably not going to get a piece of that. But what growers can do and take ownership of is go through their planters, like you said. I mean, you're going to get in essence, a brand new planter, and you want to put your eyes on it before. I would want to, as well as a grower. So, for growers, what they need to be paying attention to, and I know Missy and Bill Bauer spend a lot of time talking about the planter. We had several grower clinics or planter clinics out in Maricopa, Arizona with the Total Acre group. And we went over planters, parallel arms, make sure they're not wore, they're not oblong shape. tighten them up, replace them. I mean, these are things that are just to make good walking sense. Double disc openers, just if they got a wobble in them. Missy and them talk about the business cards, check to make sure based on your thickness, you need to be 1.5 inches or 2 inches. You can do that, but you got to check it 4 times, and then you got to move the blades. If you just check to make sure the blades are true, now that just takes some time. You can either buy them and then return them, or you can do like some of us and go to the dealership and take your time there. They used to let me do it in the front. Now they put me in the dungeon in the back now because they don't want farmers to come and see what's going on. And I used to write numbers on the blades. And they asked me to quit doing that because they had to explain to the farmer, what did that 40 mean? Or what did that 50 mean? Or something. Because I would keep all the good ones. And then I threatened them. I said, I'll stop writing numbers on as long as you don't to any Total Acre members because they've already been gone through. So those are two things that they got to do. The other thing is, we've played with set and seed. I don't know if you use set and seed, but you got to calibrate your T-handles. Just mark them. So if I walk behind the planter and all the T-handles are in the same notch, if it's a case, you could expect that. And I think Precision has done something where you can make sure the T-handles are in the same notches. But if they're not in the same notches, I would venture to say a grower didn't check each one of those row units with, like you like to say, an open furrow. Or just go inside the shop, put the set and seed underneath it or some boards, set the planter down and mark the T-handle. And, I'm not caring if this is 3 inches or this is 2.5. I just want to know what each one of them are individually. And then you said the old Billy Graham thing, make him cuss, just the closing system. How many people run, B press wheels? Most planters have them. I mean, unless you do something aftermarket. So getting them centered, scratch, run the planter on your concrete or on your shop area, and make sure they're all set. These are some of the basics. But then is each row 30 inches? Sometimes you got to check that. I mean, that's sure we all know how to run a tape measure, but sometimes when things get put together, there might be a little bit off. And, if it's 1.5 inches off, how particular, but if it's 1.5 inches off, but that's your fertilizer opening you're talking about, well, you want that. I'm assuming you're running that 2 or 3 inches to the side. Well, on a John Deere planter, if your rows aren't 30 inches apart, you can't move it 3 inches aside if they're off because it's going to hit part of the frame. So you got to make sure that they're that 30 inches from row to row. So, and then the basic thing is toolbar being level.
The right height, David, and being level.
So, how many times you go out there and you see that toolbar raised up a little bit or angled down and, it's like, okay, if it's up, then the back, and now you got your double disc openers are not working correctly and your closing system's working too hard. And then your down pressure's got to react. If it's pinched down, then now your closing system's not working quite well. And then you got too much weight on your trash sweeps or no-till coulter. So there's penalties for, most people like to run trash sweeps. I'm personally not a big trash sweep kind of fan, but if you got them, use them right. Move the stuff out of the way, but don't create a furrow because I've seen too many times where there's a furrow and what happens when you get a rain? All that water gets right in the furrow, or you get a wind event or rain and that pushes a lot of dirt over top of your seed row. And then you got, germination depth's not the same. Not because your planter wasn't set right, it's because that trash sweep blew dirt out and then it washed back in. So as a grower, there are things that we can be doing off season right now. And, the planter's one of those. We got too good of weather right now, Dowdy. It's going to be in the 60s Saturday. Not good for duck hunting. Duck hunting has been horrible. I need to go somewhere else to kill a duck. But getting work done inside the shop for now, we're trying to take outside weather.
Absolutely. Well, David, did you get any? I know for years you talked about trying to do some fall strip tilling, and obviously time is a valuable commodity. I know you planted some cover crops. There's some NRCS money I'm sure out there, especially in your part of the world, to do some of those things. But did you do any strip tilling this year in the fall, or are you saving most of that for the spring?
Well, just because of our sandy soils, the strip tilling, we could run a strip, but I couldn't put fertilizer out. I don't know that I could expect it to be there, um, in the root zone when we plant. So no strip tilling was done in the fall. We'll do it in uh, probably right after we get back from the commodity classic. Something we like to start in February. And we might, if it's dry, we might do some towards the tail end of February, but we'll all be gone. And we'll all be celebrating San Antonio, trying to find somewhere warm just before we get busy. When we get back, uh, as long as conditions are well. Because, we like to run some nitrogen, sulfur, and potash. Probably, I'm in the same camp as you are. That's why we did all these grid samples this year. Um, MAP's probably going to be not nearly as prevalent. I'm not going to say we won't run any MAP, but right now it's not in the plan. Um, and there are some farms that we do have to put MAP, but unlike you dropped chicken litter. We still went ahead and have done some chicken litter on a little bit of the home farm, one of our center farms, still trying to build phosphorus levels. So this will be the second 2 ton. We saw a big improvement on from the first time to now. And I do feel that after we get this litter out, then we can maybe do some VRTing and just get it a little bit more balanced. Because as you said, you take an inconsistent product, spread it inconsistently, um, and your soil's different, so biology is going to work differently. So we've created not a uniform field, but we've created a lot of inconsistencies. But as I hear everybody say, it's just good stuff. Just put it out. So we got a lot this year. We've got a lot of strips that we've left out, so I'm going to be anxious to see. But now, after we've got several years of litter and we've gone back, see how what the litter's actually given us, um, and so that's kind of where our focus is on the strip tilling. We're not deviating too much, and
When
we're
you gonna
very
put your
human guys.
potash? When you gonna put your potash out here, David?
We'll do the potash in the strips. That's the plan. But some of their farms we're not going to run the soil warrior across, and where we don't run those, we'll do some VRT and potash. Still, like the basic. I mean, we're still gonna. It's not going to be zero. We'll probably have a minimum of 200 plant food pounds, so that'd be rough 20 um, physical pounds of potash or K, and then we'll add some of the stuff in the strip. So that'd be another couple 100 pounds. Um, so potash that'll happen in March. We can do a lot in March. Now the only problem with doing it in March is we're counting on some rain because it takes water to make it available. If it stays dry, maybe we'll do some next month. But right now it's looking like in March when we
I got you.
start.
Well, have you made any seed selections? See, in the South, man, we do not 100%. I know there's guys probably already paid for seed, starting to take delivery of seed. They know how many corn acres they're going to plant versus bean acres. In the South, we just have so many options. None of them are real profitable options, but we got so many options of what to plant today. And whether it's going to be peanuts or whether it's cotton or whether it's some kind of produce or whether, you know, if we can get a contract on fresh market produce or canning produce or, corn, soybeans, there are options for sure. And the question is, you know, the number one enemy last year was harvest time just somewhere to go with corn. Everybody and their mama with an insurance, you know, was shooting for an insurance option on planting some dryland corn. And man, we got rain. They made a dryland crop. Now, where are you going with it? Lines were long. Most people didn't have storage. Had to dry in the field. Risk of aflatoxin because of the heat.
You know,
We were blessed not to have tropical storms or hurricanes. But my understanding is, you know, the storage on the farm is still not there, and there's still not but so much you can go where you can go with it and get it unloaded at harvest. So today there is nothing that says plant me will make you money in South Georgia. Not that's legal. So so David, I don't know. I haven't purchased seed. I haven't done anything those things with seed. I couldn't hear what you said just then. I guess it was muted there for a second, but um what'd you say?
it's a good thing I was muted because I'm like, you sound just like a farmer. We were planning something for crap. We got a big crop coming out of it. Now we got to deal with elevator lines. One year we had a big crop. It was one crops of corn, and I remember farmers complaining they were wear their trucks out, and they wanted the government to allow them to haul more pounds of grain on the roads. They wanted an exemption for farmers. I'm like, come on, y'all. Here we got to go. We ought to be fortunate. So I do get it. Tell me a crop. All right, I was in South America, in Brazil, the first week of December. And all right, let me rest assure everybody listening. I was not there to help them raise more bushels of corn or soybeans, but there are some easy things that they could do to improve their production. I'm not going to be the reason bean prices are lower because they learn better. But one of the growers asked me, where can I go in the United States and buy some ground and it paid for itself farming in 10 years? I'm like, there's nowhere you can do that in the United States and grow something legal and it pay for itself in agricultural commodities. So there's nothing that's sexy about farming right now, trying to figure out how to make a lot of money. We're just trying to survive. And I'm not deviating from my rotation, Dowdy. We're in the seed business. We grow Pioneer beans. We're growing USG soybeans. We also grow those no seed corn. We're just raising corn. So I've already purchased all my corn. We don't have none of it has shown up yet for me to start evaluating the quality of seed. And as a grower, when I'm out presenting, one of the questions I usually get is, what's the best seed size to plant? And there for a while I was like, okay, we know that these probably would do better. The small rounds and the large rounds that tendency suffer for some stress, whether it's weather stress or whether it's mechanical stress. Then you got the small flats and medium flats. They all have ever seed. So my answer is whatever your planter plants the best, that's the seed you want to plant. So one thing we did talk about was meters. You gone with the exact rate, or exact emerge meters, the bowl with the brush delivery. That's what I run. But before I was using the speed tube with the precision meter. Growers need to either review their meters, go through them, make sure everything's replaced, or send them off to get them calibrated and checked. And when we were running precision meters, Rob Gary, who happens to be one of the camp hosts for Total Acre up in Delaware, they would every year. We plant roughly 2,000 acres of corn. I'm sending the meters off. They, clean them out, check for wear, and then I send them samples of seed, and then he has samples of seed, and they would tell me what seed, based on the seed size and the weight, what vacuum pressure I needed and what speed I needed to be traveling. Give me a range so we can assure uniform singulation. Has nothing to do with emergence, but it's just spacing or singulation. Um, so growers need to do that. That's one thing, and I neglected to share that. Or go through your meters. Hey, if you got to wear something, replace it. With their meters this year, we're going to be replacing belts or the brush system, and then we'll be replacing a bunch of components inside the bowl. Um, so in reference to seed, we hadn't gotten any seed yet. We did. I'm going to plant X amount of corn. We've already got it all purchased or paid for, and then we'll see. We'll get it sent off Sodak Labs down in Brookings, South Dakota, get samples of every lot. And I'm diligent about that. I don't oftentimes I've only sent a half a dozen hybrids back. Usually it just tells me when to plant the corns. And that's something that we talk a lot about through Total Acre and to a lot of growers. I like to think, and also it's helping on their uniform emergence. They see what corns to plant at the right time. And then some of the seed might have cracks, and then you got to really stay away from in-furrow fertilizers with salts. That gives me heartburn, as you well know, Dowdy.
Well, David, I'm gonna have to ask you. I mean, when I ran the speed tubes for precision, I could get by. If I had a corn seed that was, 16 to 1800 seed per pound, and it was a medium flat, man, that those meters just liked it. I mean, it liked it. It did well. It's kind of like what Rob would tell you. And now with exact emerge, hadn't you found that is it rounds that actually plant the best and the flats don't do as well?
Yeah, when we wanted to order a new planter several years ago, and it just didn't work out. And then they talked me into the performance upgrade, and I didn't know we were going to do it at the time we were ordering seed, and ordered all flats. The precision meter, based off what my experience was, it liked flats. It could singulate a flat extremely well. When you got to rounds, you really had to knock out stuff and the eliminators, and you had to tinker with your vacuum. That was precision. When we went with the exact emerge, that thing likes rounds. Oh my goodness! It. So I had all these large flats and medium flats, and I'm trying to swap it out, and sometimes we weren't able to swap out. But that bowl does a superior job compared to what the precision did with flats. It does a better job with rounds. Now they have a new bowl that we bought last year that is better for flats than so they got two different bowls. And if a guy's got a lot of flats, you might want to switch to that bowl. But now one's expectation. I hear you say the difference between a good farmer and a poor farmer is time and attention to detail and one's level of acceptance. John Deere's level of acceptance is tighter than what I feel Precision Planting's level of acceptance. When we're comparing the monitors in the cab, I would see Precision saying I'm 99.7 to 9. I would see John Deere saying I'm 98 point some percent to 99.6%. I'm thinking I got a problem. Well, I don't know that I had a problem because we raised the closing system. That's a cool thing about things. And I'm seeing, it looks like we got a great singulation. And then once the crop comes up, I'm like, this 98.9 is what I think equal to or better than that 99.67 or 8 from Precision. So Deere's level of acceptance, and what I think I learned was Precision is where Precision and Deere actually check where the seeds, we're checking how it's dropped. Precision's doing it at one spot, Deere's doing it at another, and they're just a little bit more. They're a little more stringent on their numbers. And now I realized 98.6, I don't have to be worried about something wrong. Now, when it gets to 97, 96%, there's something going on with the meter. Piece of trash got hung in there, or some residue or something got jammed up. So then you're stopping the planter to fix it or check it out. But see, to answer your question, that was a long illustration. Deer likes rounds, precision likes flats. So whatever meter you have or planter you have, that's the size type of seed you need to be buying.
Well, see, I didn't know they came out with a different bowl for flats. So um, I will say that rounds and flats, I've always been like you, David. I need to plant what my planter likes, and I think all the seed has higher yield potential than what we're capturing, right? Um, but you know, we understand plant the ear and you know which ears or which kernels get pollinated first. Um, Me and Jasia and yourself have all had conversations about different strategies on that going forward of things that we're tinkering with and playing with. But I don't know that I've ever heard Pioneer or the seed company say that they took and measured true yield potential versus a certain size seed or certain shape seed, of one being greater than the other. But sometimes it's just hard to get certain shapes and size seed by variety. Other people have already spoke for it. Some of it's just logistics where it's placed and located. Um, Obviously, we get warm in the south, so I think we get some of the scraps on seed because we warm up fast and it's more forgiving because of, you know, saturated cold germ don't have to be as good here because we warm up so fast, right? So there's just a lot of those things that I think we have to keep in mind. But I'm real curious if I need to have flat bowls and round bowls. I guess I need to talk to the seed guy and tell me what I'm definitively going to get, and then try to just stay consistent so I don't have to swap it back and forth. Because as I've heard you speak, you said, man, there's something wrong in the very beginning when them exacta birds wouldn't plant those flats as good as the rounds. I mean, I don't want that challenge in season. There's enough already with just timing and trying to get things done. So you got my brain going. I'm on my next, as soon as we get off the phone, I'm gonna be texting them, say, hey, what seed am I going to get? And let's make sure I got the right rounds for the seed bowls or the bowls for round seeds versus flat seeds. So that's got me thinking. Um, and new technology, you just understand there's different challenges, right? So I appreciate the information. Well, David, it's
Well,
as always. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Dowdy, 2026 is difficult. We got to figure out how to save money. So you can just buy that already mixed seed. They got a discount for the mixed package seed, different sizes, shapes. There you
um, plateless seed that's been commingled, man. That where you got rounds and flats and 17 different sizes all in the same bag. I don't know if they can discount it enough, David, for the bushel loss. But you're
go.
right; they're gonna sell it, and ignorance is bliss. Farmers don't worry about what they don't know, and if they get in a deal, I mean, I remember when I used to get free seed in the very beginning, and I thought I was getting a deal. There's a lot of times I'd rather not got free seed. I'd rather bought something else, right? So it's not always you get something for free that you're winning. You're giving up something most of the time. So just be careful with that. But
Yeah, what now is it anybody that's getting that plateless seed, and I appreciate you saying the name 'cause I couldn't think of it at the time. I would really challenge them to plant some graded seed next to it, just to have and you if you don't want to know the answer to know how much this costs you, don't do that trial. But I think to your best interest, if you're going to be plateless seed, maybe fill half the planter with some plated seed or graded seed, or just do a strip, just so you could know what it's costing you or helping you out. And I'm going to be with you, Dowdy. It's costing them money. So if the seed companies would give you a guarantee on bushels and you had a check, hey, I'd be all about it. But that's not going to happen.
I hear you loud and clear, David. Well, as always, it's been good to talk to you, David. The challenges of 26 are looming large. Um, but the basics, we got to have God's blessings, all those things, but we got to make sure we're doing and checking the boxes of the things, controlling the controllables, doing the things that we know that pays, the things that we have some data on that pays, understanding what those things are, don't deviate from them. And, you know, you gotta miss small. You can't miss big in an economy like this. So if we're gonna fail, we don't need to fail in a big way. We need to miss small if we're gonna miss. So if what I mean by that, if I'm gonna take and explore with new things just to stay on the cutting edge of technology and new products and what's out there, man, I'm gonna miss small because I'm gonna put my big toe in the water, but it ain't gonna be the whole foot and do a bunch of acres. We're gonna test it, try to trust but verify these things work and that they pay ROI. Real simple. And I'm going back to the days of, okay, I'm gonna have a control, and if it don't yield as well, you're gonna make me whole, right? And I make them put their money where their mouth is. So I don't get scared of trying new things, but I am scared of not being profitable and not being able to service debt. And let's just face it, we got to do our due diligence. But David, always it's good to be with you, man. You made, if people were listening, they got a whole big long checklist from today of things they might should consider for next year. I'm sure we'll see some of it on AgWeb. They generally try to take some of what we do and put it on AgWeb as well, or Farm Journal TV, or Farm Report, Ag Day, something. It'll be out there. So uh, hopefully we gave them enough tidbits of things, of the basics, to make sure a checklist of things to try and got people thinking. So as always, David, be safe. I know you say you spread the line. Always be careful, and we'll talk soon, man. Take care.
That are listening, may God bless all the seeds you sow, and 2026 is going to be a good year. All right.
Lord willing. Lord willing. Yes, sir.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon for another new episode of Breaking Barriers with R&D. Be sure to like and subscribe. And remember, all episodes are available on Farm Journal TV and anywhere podcasts are found.